another episode of Holistic Lifestyle Coaching with Ryan David. I'm Ryan David, and today I'm talking about rule number 11 of my 12 rules of romance. And those 12 rules were inspired, once again, if you don't know already, by this book here, 2002 Romantic Ideas. I got a link in the description below for you to check that out if you want to pick that book up. But today, rule number 11 in my 12 rules of romance. And rule number 11, let's see what rule number 11 is. Rule number 11. Romantic rule number 11, true romance is putting the happiness of your significant other ahead of your own happiness. Interestingly enough, my cat is here. I call him my son because we're that close. My cat is here. And so we do this with pets. I heard it was a conversation I was listening to on the radio, and it was talking about the length that we go to, the distances that we go to, and the links that we go to for our pet's well-being. You know, we'll make sure the pet gets to the vet. We'll make sure the pet gets the medication. We'll make sure the pet gets the medication. But there's a large percentage of people that when they go to the doctor to get prescribed medication, they won't even go get the medication filled, let alone take the medication for themselves. And that was just a conversation as to how we have a natural tendency to do more for others and take care of other people, or do things for others that we won't do for ourselves. And that was an interesting take on that, but it's just interestingly enough that relates to kind of what we're talking about here, except for the fact that oftentimes in relationships and with romance, we get into relationships to get, and we want to be pleased, and we want pleasure for ourselves, and we want people to give to us and people to make us happy, so on and so forth. And this rule, romance is selfless, is really just to remind you to embody the mindset and the mentality that a relationship is a place to give and to put your partner's needs first. I think the way to look at it is make sure that your first goal is not for you to seek selfish pleasure in the situation. And so again, going back to what I said in an earlier rule, if both people get into the relationship with their goal of giving and contributing to the other person, then both people are receiving in a relationship, and therefore both people can benefit from the other. And if both people embody this mentality, this mindset of putting the other person first, well, then both people are put first in a relationship. You don't have to be unhappy for your partner to be happy, and I actually would advise you to pay attention to, and that's a red flag. Of course, if your partner's only happy, or you have to be miserable, or you find yourself that you have to make sacrifices that you're unhappy with just for your partner to be, quote, happy, that's a problem, because your partner shouldn't want you to be unhappy. There's a difference between that and saying, you know what, I'm going to put my own personal needs and desires and wishes aside to go the extra effort, go the extra mile, make the extra effort to please my partner. And that speaks to something that I talked about in a previous video that I did, and the difference between making love and having sex. And I'll link that for you right there. Go ahead and click that, or check that out when this video is over with. The difference between making love and having sex, the premise there was our intention. And so just to summarize what I talked about there was, in terms of making love, your intention is to please your partner. Your intention is to go into it, and the goal is for your partner to be pleased. And you're not going to sacrifice and go through pain for that to take place. I mean, unless you're into that, and be careful if you are. But the point is, the goal and the intention of making love is with your partner's primarily, with your partner's needs in mind. And having sex is selfish. You really having sex is for yourself, and the goal is to make sure you're pleased first, if you will, or the reason why you're doing it is so that you make sure you're pleased. So that's an interesting concept, and it kind of relates to this whole idea that romance is selfless, and you have to have the mentality and the mindset that I'm going to do for my partner what my partner desires and what my partner sees as romantic, if I want to please them and I want them to feel that sense of romance. And if both people are doing that, both of you all benefit. So just that notion and that understanding that love in and of itself is selfless. We have to be selfless to give, because love is an action, and we choose to love other people. So it's a fine line between being miserable and being hurt and being upset and being in pain and being unhappy at the expense of or I should say, trying to please your partner or have your partner be happy at the expense of your own happiness. But again, happiness is one of those words we got to define, because the goal really isn't to be happy 24/7. And so just got to keep that in mind as well. But romance is selfless. I think that's a great reminder for us to keep in mind as far as our partner's needs, and to prioritize what we're doing. And sometimes you need to put your own desires and your own pleasures on the back burner if it means being able to do something and go the extra mile to please your partner. And that's what I mean by selfless. I think that's what the book's talking about by selfless. Selfless meaning give and put your own needs and desires to the side. Not always and not forever, but at times that you want to be romantic, sometimes it takes focusing on them and not you. And that's really hard for us to do because we're selfish creatures by nature. So we got to be mindful of that. So great rule there. That's rule number 11. I'll be back tomorrow. If you're watching this video in sync, then tomorrow, you know what tomorrow is. Tomorrow is February 14th. It'll be Valentine's Day. I'll be back tomorrow with rule number 12, and we will wrap up these rules. But until then, if this interests you and you're into relationships, love, and you want to know how to improve the quality or the health of your relationship by any chance, consider subscribing to the channel, because I do a lot more than just these 12 rules of romance when it comes to healthy relationships and how to communicate and connect and again, that sort of thing. So consider subscribing to the channel. And until then, until the next episode, until the next rule, I'll see you. Take care.